then then I see
Ryan too.
Mm-hmm.
And I am going to share my screen, hopefully the right screen. It's always another gamble. And then everything changes on my computer, so I have to rearrange myself. Okay, cool. Well, welcome to our April session. We are so excited to have you all here. Thank you so much for taking time out of the day. More people, I'm sure, will be coming in as we get started, but we'll just go through some quick announcements. We have a couple special guests today, so I'm really excited to hear from Mary about naming conventions. I poached her on Twitter about the topic because we were having a conversation, and selfishly, this is always something I'm struggling with, so I'm really excited to talk about that. And then also we're going to have a few highlights of the Appexchange. We're really excited to have a few people announce their favorite apps on the Appexchange, as well as hearing directly from Salesforce Labs. We have Marianna on the line, so she'll be talking about that as well. So going through our announcements a little bit. My computer's running a little slow and I'm afraid it's going to jump too far ahead. There we go. So I'm Jen Bowen. For those of you who don't know me, I am the community group leader here in Madison group. Brian Kwong is also here. Squire's on from Milwaukee. And Jen, I don't think she's here, but she is also co-leads the Milwaukee group. As most of you already probably know, we alternate month to month between Madison and Milwaukee. So this month is us, and then next month you can probably look forward to seeing a meeting invite from the Milwaukee group. Squire's giving me thumbs up, so we should be hearing about that or hearing that come through soon. Why are we all here today? Well, we're here to really be successful together. So we are, always sharing tips and tricks and any information we can about the Salesforce platform, because there's so much to know. We couldn't possibly do it all ourselves. So really, we're here to network, and then also sharing is caring. So sharing best practices, tips, tricks, Appexchange apps that we love, naming conventions, things like that. Because really, I know I couldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for this group. So excited that you're all joining and coming back too. If you are interested in sharing stories or lessons learned or things that you're really excited about, things that you're building on the platform, things you're reading about in the community, things you're seeing other members doing, and you want to share that information, don't be shy. Please reach out to us. We're always asking for presentations. While we're virtual, we're very lucky to be able to pull on our Chicago friends and other folks out there. But we love hearing from our community and what you're building and what you're being successful with. So please let us know. Reach out to myself, Brian, Square, any one of us close to the community. We're happy to get you fit into a future meeting. Speaking of the community, we are growing so much. We definitely have all of our kind of community group friends in the Wisconsin area posted to our success community. So definitely go out there and check that out. Check these groups out. Our most recent one was the marketer group in Madison. I know is starting to spin up. So something, if you use Marketing Cloud, that might be something that you're interested in. Also, our Salesforce Saturdays, okay, I'll be honest, our Madison Salesforce Saturday has been slacking. We're hoping to get something posted up for April, but definitely we're on Eventbrite, so we will post if anything is scheduled for that. And then I also want to mention MVP office hours. I know Square does the MVP office hours along with a few other MVPs out there. Square, do you want to just unmute quick and talk about what MVP office hours is?
Yeah, happy to. I think it has a lot of similarities to Salesforce Saturdays. It's the first and third Friday of the month. Log in, listen to people talk about challenges or information that they've gathered, and we all work together to either solve a problem or help each other find our directions, or just just have an hour of collaboration on the platform. Everybody's welcome. We like to say that you don't have to be an MVP to join, because everybody's an MVP for being there, and the whole world's welcome. So we've got another one coming up on the 23rd.
It's a great resource for sure. I know I've jumped into a couple of those sessions myself. So any upcoming events that we have, again, we'll post them to the Trailblazer community. There is one thing I added to this that I wanted to mention, is that the community is now on Trailhead Go. So Trailhead Go is the mobile app for, well, learning on the Trailhead platform, right? But also they're adding the community to that as well. So not only can you access the Success community or the Trailblazer community through your desktop, you can now do that on your iOS or Android. I will be honest, I haven't even installed the app yet. I'm so embarrassed. But I don't go anywhere. So if I want to use something, I'm just going to go on my computer, never leave my house. But certainly check it out, because we can connect even more utilizing that app. So I also wanted to announce a job opportunity that kind of crossed my desk. I know Daniel's on the line. Daniel, did you want to unmute yourself and talk about Canvas Cloud and what you're looking for?
Sure. I mean, so we're growing. Actually, it's a great thing. We're a local partner based in the Northeast, so Green Bay, Appleton area. But we have actually had a significant growth as a partner through COVID, and have been able to do quite a few really cool things regionally. And so we are looking for a experienced business analyst to join our team. We're also looking actually for a account executive, which isn't on here, but the business analyst is definitely more on the radar. But yeah, we focus primarily on the core clouds, and we claim that we're the best team, but obviously there's a lot of other partners out there that are pretty good too. So yeah, I'd say no offense to the other partners there. We just like to say that we have fun, and it's 100% virtual job. So
great, thank you. So if you're interested, you can reach out to Daniel, or of course follow the link. I'll make sure that this is posted on the community as well, if it's something that you want to look into more. So with that, I think that what we're going to do is we're going to talk about naming conventions. Mary's going to walk us through how to improve naming permission sets, flows, processes, validation rules, all those kinds of good things. And then after she presents, we'll pass it back to me real quick to talk about what the Appexchange is, and then who we're going to hear from on the Appexchange products that we want to share. So with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen, and Mary, you should be a co-host to take over.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, everyone should see my splash screen, correct? Okay, so let's jump in. We're going to talk about using naming conventions in your org. This is a presentation I gave at Dreamforce 19, the last in-person Dreamforce. Before we get started, I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'm a lead application administrator at a firm in Chicago called Relativity. We work in the e-discovery space. If e-discovery is a foreign concept to you, don't worry, you're not alone. Basically, e-discovery is the data process that happens between the time you are sued and the time your legal matter gets adjudicated. So we work with a lot of documents. Our focus is, our vision statement is to power the pursuit of justice, and our mission statement is organize data, discover the truth, and act on it. So being a very data-focused company, we leverage Salesforce in a lot of ways. I joined almost 3 years ago, coming from an org where I was a solo admin. And as a solo admin, it was really easy for me to start implementing naming conventions where I could. And when I joined a new org, it became really apparent the pain of not having naming conventions. We had gone through a lot of departments that renamed themselves, but not all the metadata came with it. We had a lot of bad habits, as I would call them, where people put like dates in email templates that now were 10 plus years old. So it was kind of hard to tell if stuff was being used. So it really had me start thinking about ways we could improve our org, make our life easier, and improve the way we troubleshoot. So with that, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about how they can help you. Why do you want to use naming conventions? Because there's not much point in me talking about it if you can't identify what's in it for you. We're going to talk about the core tenets of naming conventions, AKA the things you will probably hear me harp about through the entire presentation. We're going to talk about where you can incorporate naming conventions. Keep in mind, this is not an exhaustive list by any means. I will have some mentions of some other places that I frequently use them. And then we're going to close it out with tips and key takeaways and give a few minutes for questions before turning it back over to Jen. So I kind of already alluded to the cautionary tale around naming conventions. A lot of times we create stuff that is hard to find. It makes sense to the creator, but as we leave a firm, as our team grows, the importance of everyone swimming in the same direction becomes more and more important. We all have a lot on our plate. It's important that we can do what we need to do efficiently, not create pain in the process of doing what we need to do. So I believe firmly that naming conventions are important to help us quickly and easily identify what those items are and the purpose of those items. So that brings us in to our core tenets. So the first thing, do not forget your description fields. They are there for a reason. They are there to explain why you have created something. They should be updated. They are living, breathing pieces of metadata. So you have a field and you've decided to change the way you're using it, you update your description. Possibly also you're updating your help text. I also like to tag whatever method I use for tracking my work. So at our company, our team uses Jira. So every piece of work is assigned a Jira issue. You may use cases, you may use some other type of system. I like to put the Jira number in that description field. So that way, if someone wants even more context than what I have provided them, they have a way to track back to it. One caveat, one thing we've had to address on our team is don't only put the Jira issue or case number or something like that. Don't make it unnecessarily hard for people. The point of the description field is to, at a glance, get a high level of what you need. So leave those breadcrumbs for someone, give them a way to find more detail if it's warranted. The second thing you're going to hear me talk a lot about today is documenting your strategy. Whether you're a solo or whether you're part of a team, it's really important to document your approach and document anything that supplements the way you are rolling out your naming conventions. If you don't, you will stray from the conventions that you've created. Either you yourself will get into a bad habit and forget to follow your own advice, or your teammates will not have something to refer to and to understand the method behind your madness. And then the last thing I will say is be consistent and start small. So kind of talking about documenting your strategy, really putting out your philosophy behind what you're naming things and why. Be consistent and don't bite off more than you can chew. You may have an org that is a hot mess in terms of naming your metadata. Pick an area you feel you can make the most impact and start there, and then just keep iterating on it. Orgs don't get improved overnight. Our org certainly is a work in progress, so don't get frustrated by doing it. I personally feel that anytime I've ever tried to take something on that is very big, Salesforce or not, and I've tried to take on the big picture versus really chipping away at small pieces, I've felt defeated. And so this is a way to get some quick wins that you and your team can see instantly. So with that, we're going to jump in and start talking about validation rules. For me, this was the first place I was able to leverage naming conventions, both in the org when I was a solo and roll it out to the company I work at now. So the core idea behind naming conventions is twofold with validation rules. One is to create error codes that organize your rules. And the second piece of that is to put those error codes in the messages for troubleshooting. I'm guessing many of the admins here are using automation. So nothing is worse than when you have a complex piece of automation that traverses multiple objects. You get a whole bunch of email messages that you're not following a certain validation rule. And if you have an org like I've always worked in that has some lovely generic error messages like this value is invalid, or you cannot choose that record, you have no idea which object you are talking about. And you're going to spend extra time digging into that rather than solving the problem. So we're going to show you how to more easily get to the answer and then remediate. So again, we've talked about the benefits, finding your rule quickly, making it easy for your users to report issues. I'm guessing I'm not the only person here who has users who will report that it's broken, or Salesforce won't let me do it, or I get an error message. And then you get to play the fun back and forth game with like, well, what does that error message say? Like, I don't know, it just says I can't do something. Well, one of the things you can tell your users by using naming conventions with error codes is you give me the last code at the end of that message, because then you can figure out what it is. You don't have to argue back and forth and try and get a screenshot or try and get them to copy and paste or give you the exact language. You will have it right there. So our approach is to assign object prefixes. I'll show you more of that in a minute, and then apply your prefixes to both your rule names and your error messages. So a pro tip that we learned when we started doing this is you can use a version of this in lookup filters. I'm guessing that not everyone customizes their lookup filter messages. It's that default message that, you know, the value is not valid for the selection. Doesn't really say a whole lot. Sometimes it comes up in automation. You have no idea which field, which object, where it came from. So one of the things we've started doing as well is even if we're not modifying that default error message on a lookup filter, we are adding to the end of it the object name and the field name. That makes it quicker for us to determine where the issue is coming from, especially if there's a reason that the filter is firing and it shouldn't be. So with that, we'll look at a current validation rule. So here we have, you know, the account name can't be changed. And we've done something really good here. We have used a custom label instead of hard coding an ID. And this is another place I like to use naming conventions. We have a label for an account. So the way I treat labels in my org is I always prefix it by the purpose. Most times that's the object. So in this case, any label that has to do with an account will start with account. If it's a specific account, then it's going to be followed by that account name. In our org, we have a lot of references to our company's account record. So we have, our company used to be called Kekura. So our label actually says account Kekura. But then I also use it for other things. We were talking before we got started. We do an integration with Slack and we post to specific Slack channels. I store those IDs in custom labels. All of those labels are labeled Slack, the name of the channel. We do it for record types, you know, case, record type name. And then in that category, we note that it has the ID in there. So it's another way you can use naming conventions to make your life easier, because I will tell you, troubleshooting this validation rule is a lot easier than troubleshooting an ID and then figuring out which record type that ID belonged to or which account that ID belonged to. And then we have our error message. You cannot change the name of this record. So again, not a super helpful error message. If you got this on a piece of automation that touched multiple objects, you would not necessarily know which object triggered it. So we're going to look at how we can improve that. you're going to assign a prefix to every object. I keep a table of this in the place where we document our org. So we use Confluence. You can really use any tool you like, but I think it's important to have this table. That way, again, everyone is swimming in the same direction. You don't have to name all your objects out of the box. You can add to it as you have a need to clean up existing validation rules or add new ones. And you don't have to follow my lead on A for account, C for contact. Do whatever really works for you and makes the most sense. Doesn't have to be 2 letters. I probably would not go beyond 3 because you do have a character limit in how long your rule name can be. So you don't want to go too far and limit how much you can describe that rule's name. But in our org, we have a table that basically looks exactly like this, listing these out. And then on the right, it shows you our rules are ordered. So you can easily see where you left off in the numbering. So you always want to check where you've left off. If I've left off at A03, my next rule is going to be A04. And then we've added the error message at the end. So this is the error message that a user can give you if they trigger a validation rule. This is the error message or error code that if I see a Apex exception error, that's the first thing I look at. I frankly don't even read the message. I look for the code and then I go into my org and look at what that rule is and look at the bones of the rule. So once we've done that, we can improve our validation rule. So this new rule, we've updated the rule name and we've added our error code at the end of the message. And I will make this presentation available so you'll have access to all these slides. So let's move on to talking about permission sets. Permission sets are great. Salesforce is moving in that direction. If you're like our group, we create a lot of permission sets. And they're helpful for adding ad hoc access, but they also can be hard to figure out what's in them, what their purpose is. So again, you want to use your description fields. You don't want to overload your permission sets. You don't want kitchen sink permission sets that do a whole bunch of different things, because when you're troubleshooting, it's going to be hard, especially if you're trying to restrict access, to figure out who has what and why. They should, in my opinion, they should be very narrow in focus and do very specific things that make sense. And I'll get a little bit more into that. So the benefits of adding naming conventions are to quickly identify the relevant permission set and their purpose, to organize and alphabetize your permission sets, and to, again, be in line with Salesforce vision for the future of permissioning. So I think you can do permission sets in a couple ways, and I don't think they have to be mutually exclusive. You can take a role-based approach, which is one of the ways we do it in our org. So it'll leverage a role, a department, or a profile. So we have a procurement team. We have a lot of rules that are around procurement. So we will have like procurement approver or procurement submitter as our validation rules. And then it's very clear to me which permissions those rules are supposed to have. I again spell it out in the description. Our procurement approvers should have view all and modify all access. Our procurement submitters should have more limited access to what they're able to see and do, definitely not having delete permission. Again, it clearly identifies who should have that permission, but the downside is you do create a potential for creating duplicates. Sometimes there will be permissions that are not role specific, that are much broader. So you want to use a judicious approach and think about when role-based makes sense and when role-based may lead to creating redundant roles. So here are some examples of ones we use: sales user edit opportunities, knowledge publisher permissions. So those would work if you have very specific personas that are only supposed to do certain things. The other way we can name permission sets in an organized fashion are function-based. So it leverages the object, the application, or the function, as opposed to leveraging that persona. It identifies the purpose of the permission set, and but it does create potential for a high volume of permission sets, depending on how broad you're making these permissions. So an example of this would be like case delete permission. Who should have that? That can span a variety of personas, but it's very specific as to what you are supposed to be able to do with that permission set. And then we have, at our company, we have a training and certification team similar to Salesforce, and we have an education app. So education app permissions. It's very clear about the function that that permission set is providing. So here's an example of before naming conventions in an org. You know, we have delete accounts, edit training objects, publish articles, training mock survey. It's all kind of mixed up. Like if I want to look for something that really focuses on a particular persona or business area, I'm really looking through what could potentially be a very long list of permissions to find what I need. If I want to clean it up, now here I'm talking about account delete permission. So we know which object, knowledge, same thing. Persona here, training app, user permissions, training mock survey. So we have some very specific both role and function-based permissions that are organized so you're not searching through pages and pages of permissions to find what you need. So let's talk about processes and flows. We all create them. It's easy to create lots of them. And if you're like me, you hate going into Process Builder and resorting every single time you want to look for something new. Because if you're not leading with, say, the object, it's going to be all over the place because it's Process Builder by default only sorts by the name of your process. So change sets and deployment tools. We use a custom deployment tool. And so it groups the metadata by a single type flow. So even if you create a process, it's tagged as a flow. So I like to call out which of my items are processes and which of my items are flows for a couple of reasons. One of is when I deploy it, I need to verify that it's there. We in our company deploy inactive. So I need to go in and find it and activate it. This saves me the trouble of going between two different places and going to a flow and like, oh, it's not there. It must be a process. And then going into the process builder, finding it to activate it. Sometimes less so today with the enhancements to flow. Sometimes we have processes that kick off flows. So they're very similarly named, but they exist in two different sections of Salesforce. This again makes it easy for me. And we have that sticky sorting approach we already talked about. So the way I approach it is I treat all of my processes and flows with the starting object, the function, and I end it with process or flow. So here's an example, case, article creation, flow. Sometimes I will add in there screen flow. So I know if it's a screen or if I know if it's not, just from a quick glancing through the flow list to see what's there. But what's nice about it is it's automatically sorted for me. So all of my items that touch the case object are grouped together. All of my items that touch procurement are grouped together automatically. I'm not filtering through and searching for them. One of the things that we've started doing, what I'm considering my pro tip is, I believe it was in winter 21, where Salesforce started assigning API versions to processes and flows. And so one of the things our team has struggled with is part of our platform health, which is an effort that I lead, is a while ago we adopted keeping all of our code within 3 API versions. So once a year, our developer team goes through, makes sure they brought everything up to the most recent API version. And what our admin team is going to need to start doing is doing that exact same thing. So what we've decided to do, at least for the time being, we're hoping that Salesforce will roll out some improvements to actually make this process easier, is in our description, the first few characters of our description are V and the API number. It'll group them. It doesn't have to have the V. You could actually just put the number in. So this way I could quickly see like how many things do we have on 49? How many things do we have on 50? How many things do we have on 51? And so this is for us going to be an easy way to identify those items that have gone beyond that 3 API version threshold that we've set for ourselves. Where you set that threshold really is a personal decision. And here's an example of what the flows look like when they're nice and organized. So we have one case flow, screen flow. We have all our context grouped together. We have something for groups. We have a few knowledge items, and we have tasks. So this, again, it saves you from sorting and searching. It puts everything into nice little buckets for you. So I'm going to give you some tips and some key takeaways. So reports, dashboards, and email templates. I don't know if everyone has the same dumpster fire that we have, but we have a lot of reports, a lot of dashboards, and a lot of email templates, and none of them have great names. We have stuff that people have created with the admin who worked at our company over 10 years ago. And it's like new case closed notification, Mario. I'm like, who the hell is Mario? And why is it new if it's already 12 years old? So we want to take consistent ways to pick naming strategies. I encourage all of my users to start each folder with their department name if it can't simply be the department name. That when we're looking through folders, it's really easy to figure it out. It's not on here, but one of the things I also like to do is I encourage our report and dashboard, and if we're talking about public facing email templates, I encourage our report and dashboard users in particular to understand the reporting and dashboard sharing roles. I encourage them that if they're going to have someone manage their folders, to have 1 to 2 people do that, to only have another couple people doing the editor function, and to make everyone else a viewer. Because if you want to maintain some kind of integrity on your reports and dashboards, you really need to have some type of governance structure in place. For objects and fields, again, this is probably the most frustrating thing for me, having a very large org with a lot of tech debt. We create a lot of redundant fields in the sense that you probably have a lot of fields in your org that are start date or status or type. And if you name them start date or status or type, and you've ever tried to deprecate something or figure out where it's referenced and it just happens to not be available on the where is this use button, or you want to double check it, if you plug in the word type _C, you're probably going to get lots and lots of hits, and most of them are probably irrelevant. So I like to add the object name before anything that is a very common field that I know I'm going to use in multiple places. So in this case, on my training object, I may have a status field. I know I'm going to have a status field on my training group object and my training attendee object. All of those are actually real objects in my org. So they're all very similar, but they all could have a status field. We talked a little bit about custom labels already, using that function where we talk about the object first and then whatever it's doing. So is it a record type? Is it record type name? Is it a particular account name? That also flows through to custom permissions if you are using them. I'm not going to talk about all the great ways you can use custom permissions, but it's another great way to grant access, but also avoid hard coding in some places. But again, it's a really easy way to instill naming conventions in your org. It's a little bit messier about both of these than say like a validation rules. You actually need to recreate them. You're not going to be able to fully edit that name. The other thing I will say about custom labels, if you have a lot of apps that generate managed labels in your org, so there's been an on and off known issue where if you start your custom label with a capital letter, you can't use it in your flow. It just won't let you choose it. It's one of my favorites, and I'm kind of a crazy control freak. I love my custom labels to start with a capital letter, but I have had, and I like them to all be consistent, but I've had to accept that starting them with a lowercase letter will cause me less stress in the long run, because for whatever reason, lowercase first letter of my custom labels does not trigger the known issue. So that would be my recommendation. I actually should have updated my slide to include a small L in leave delete. And so my key takeaways, this is going to be another rehash of those core tenets. Use your description fields. Here's an example of using that case number in the description field to provide some direction to someone if they need more than the information you are providing them. Be consistent. Socialize your approach. I cannot say that enough. It's great if you take the time to come up with a naming convention strategy. I highly encourage you to crowdsource it. It should be a team effort, because if you're going to decide on the naming convention and push it on everyone else, it may not work for you, for your team. And also, you'll probably get a lot of good feedback on what ways you can improve some of the ideas that you already have. It'll also help get buy-in so that people are going to want to provide a consistent approach in the org and are not going to just keep doing their own thing. Lastly, make a plan and document it. Documenting isn't always something that we do often, because it's a time thing. Would we rather be building or would we rather be documenting? Most of us would probably rather be building, but it's important to document it because you need to be able to refer back to it. Your change isn't going to happen overnight. So, if you lay out your plan, it's something you can refer back to, and start small, figure out where you can make the biggest impact with the naming convention changes that you start to implement. And with that, I will open it up for some questions.
Thanks, Mary. Anyone have any questions on this? Feel free to just unmute yourself.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Hi, Teresa.
Hi. About record types. So we have a lot of validation rules and we have tons of record types. So have you used the record type as well in some of the naming conventions?
I have. So what I have discovered is I was using developer name instead of ID a lot in my validation rules. And what I found is that creates an object reference. And so if you have an object that's used quite heavily, that can be problematic, where you might hit that magic number of 20 a lot faster than you intend to. If you use an ID, it doesn't happen. So we have a lot of custom labels that are object specific that refer just to the record type. So we call our case objects tickets. Because case has a very different connotation in the legal industry. And so under ticket, we basically have a label for every single record type. It contains the 18-digit ID. And then in the categories that we assign to each label, we include the phrase ID, and we also include the phrase record type, because that will allow us, if we need to create a custom list view that only pulls in those particular labels. If you are using a validation rule, the thing to note is you need to use the left function. You need to do, if you're saying record type ID equals, it needs to then be followed by left, your custom label, comma 15, because validation rules will only, and I believe formula fields will only accept 15 characters. I have no idea why. I can just tell you that if you don't want your rule to fire, then set it to 18.
All right, so I guess I was getting to the point of, do you put those in the names as well? So if you have a validation rule that is specific to a record type, do you recommend putting that in your name of your validation rule to make it clear without having to go into them?
If you can, if you can't describe your rule with the record type name in it, I would put it in the description. But if you're able to get it into the name of the rule, yes, I like to put it in there.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I will say that I love the idea of the object prefixes and how you did that with your validation rule error messages so that you can quickly see and know exactly what it is that triggered it.
Yeah, and I can't take complete credit for that. I saw that put in the community one several years back and loved the idea so much and was so frustrated by, we had a lot of record types with a lot of very similar rules, like, you know, one business group's clients didn't have to fill out a field if they joined in a particular month, but another group's clients didn't have to fill out a certain field if they joined like 7 months later. And the messages were exactly the same except for a date. And it was always so frustrating to figure out like which applied to which and what I needed to address. And so the minute I saw that, I was like, this is something we can use. This is something within my wheelhouse and will make a huge impact very quickly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great.
With that, thank you. And I will turn it back over to Jen.
Thank you so much. It gives me a lot to think about, and I'm really excited to talk to my colleague who I'm a 2 admin shop. So I'm really excited to talk about this with him. Okay, so let me get back to where I need to be to share my screen here.
It's okay, Jen. It's only been a year. Everyone has Zoom issues.
I know. I'm like, oh, click, click, click. Okay, so we are so excited to talk about the Appexchange. The way that this is going to work is we're going to start with Marianna from Salesforce Labs. So she is going to talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to pass it on to Cassie, who's talking about FormAssembly. And then I don't know if I saw Edessa, if she's here yet.
I'm
She
here.
She is here. Okay, good. I know that you're running late, so she's going to share an app that she installed long time ago to help her. And then if we have time, Brian is going to talk about something called GridMate, which is kind of exciting. And then I am going to share why I love Organizer for Salesforce. So before we get into these presentations and I hand it over to Marianna, I wanted to talk about what the Salesforce Appexchange was, just in case you don't know. So essentially, the Appexchange is a marketplace with pre-built solutions that can really help you extend some of the core functionality of Salesforce. So this can be things like pre-built apps that you install. They can be free, they can be paid. So something to pay attention to. And then also there's things like Lightning components. So if you don't have a developer handy, there's some Lightning components that are helpful that can be out on the Appexchange that maybe work for you. They even have pre-built flows out there as well. There's so much available to us out on the Appexchange. And as I mentioned, some are free, which is really nice, and some are paid. So whenever I know my approach, whenever I look to the Appexchange, I'm usually looking for free first, but also I get a couple of similar apps that maybe they're competitors of each other or something like that, and I vet them out first. You know, I install them into my sandbox if they're free, or get a trial if they're paid, install them in my sandbox, give it a test drive, make sure it's actually meeting my needs before I pursue it further. The other thing that there's a couple other things you can find on the Appexchange as well, like partners. So if you're looking for an implementation partner or something like that, you can get a list of partners out there from the Appexchange as well. And again, I highly recommend vetting them out. Make sure that they are a good fit for you, because you'll be working with them over the course of, you know, however amount of time to do an implementation or to, you know, clean up an org or to help you with a project. You can learn more about the Appexchange, guess what, on Trailhead. They have a badge for that. So I definitely would recommend checking that out if the Appexchange is new for you. So Brian, is there anything you want to add, or does anyone want to add more information about what the Appexchange is? Or
I think Marianna has some slides that goes on a little bit more too. So
Awesome. We will then go ahead.
Squire has something he wants to add.
We're a big Appexchange user, our firm, and if you aren't leveraging it, you should definitely be doing it, which you've already said. But I think the other piece of that is having a kind of an operating procedure for what that means. So we have documented that all things we're planning to install go through certain security reviews, certain vendor relationship reviews, licensing and versioning reviews, and a test model, so that you never feel like, hey, how did this get installed? What did this mean? Why can't I uninstall it? And maybe the biggest thing is that some of the Appexchange, specifically the paid apps, a lot of times your data is actually not stored in your org. They're pushed to where the contractor is. So knowing that ahead of time can really save you a lot of pain points. So spending an hour or two writing up kind of an operating procedure of how you're going to assess these things before they go in really helps save yourself some headaches. I think it's a really good idea.
And it sounds like next time Squire will be giving them an overview of what that entails and how he recommends you do it.
I would love to.
Thanks for the volunteer.
Thanks, Squire. So Marianna, if you want to take it from here, you're currently a co-host.
Sure. Thank you, Jen. Hi, everyone. My name is Marianna Torres, and I've actually joined Salesforce back in January of 2020, and I'd initially joined as an intern before I was actually converted into a full-time employee. So I will be sharing my screen inside of a bit, but for some reason it's telling me that I have to quit. So I'll be back like in 2 seconds.
What?
That is the worst.
Yes, that's odd.
Yeah, I've had that happen like once before too.
Real with Zoom? I've had it happen with Teams and Hangouts.
Oh yeah, I think we've all been there. We can all relate.
I think it might depend on like what version
it could be.
you're using.
Yeah. And she's back.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, everyone. Jen, if you could do me a favor and
Add you
just
back
allow me,
as a
yeah,
Already did that.
co-host. Awesome. Okay.
should be good. Yep, you should be good. Perfect.
Awesome.
There we go. Yep. Now we're looking at your web browser.
So once again, hi everyone, my name is Marianna. I'm very excited to be joining today. And today I'm going to be speaking to you a little bit about what Salesforce Labs is and how we run the program. So currently I'm working with Salesforce Labs as an evangelist. A big part of my role is to essentially spread Labs exclusive happiness through the form of blogs, written content, social media, as well as some videos. So I'm super excited to be here today, and we can go ahead and we can get started. Really fast, as an employee, I am obliged to just let everybody know, or rather to advise you to just make all purchasing decisions off of products that are currently available. So I just want to keep that top of mind while we move on forward. So Jen did go through a little bit about what Appexchange is, and well, I can expand a little bit more on that as well. So as she stated, Appexchange is actually the Salesforce marketplace where you can find all sorts of solutions, including apps, components, and flows that can help you customize your own Salesforce environment to meet your own needs. Where Salesforce Labs plays in is we are a sub-team within Appexchange that offers employee-built solutions to Appexchange. So as mentioned earlier, Appexchange does include solutions that are created by partners, but we also allow employees to bring their own ideas to the platform as well. So all Salesforce Labs apps are in fact free to use. Each and every Salesforce Labs is offered to you for free, but I do want to just let everybody know that some solutions do require paid features and licenses as well to work. And And each and every labs is also employee built. So some are brought to you actually like by individual employees, whereas others have entire product teams behind them, and you know, a lot of like moving parts there. But it really depends on what on like what solution it is, but just they're all brought to you by Salesforce personnel. And trust. So trust is our number one value here at Salesforce. And so what that means for Salesforce Labs is that we go through the exact same security review process that our partners go through. That security review process includes things like, you know, looking at the code, making sure that everything is like, you know, just like okay, and just like you know, fine to be put out there like on Appexchange. So for some reason, a lot of people think that like we wouldn't be inside or like we aren't expected to do that because we're employees, but you know, I'm here to tell you that that's not true. We take the security review process very, very seriously, and every single labs that goes through that process as well. And lastly, many Salesforce Labs apps are also open source. So we have a GitHub repository where you can access all of our code, and you can further customize them to meet your organization's unique needs. So you can find us there, and I would encourage you to go and explore and see what kind of solutions you can find and customize. So Appexchange also has a couple of resources available to help you find and navigate all Salesforce Labs solutions. So the first one that I want to mention is our new digital app guide. And through this app guide, you can actually obtain information such as customer recommended labs solutions, as well as common business challenges that many customers face. And we provide like certain solutions that can help solve those challenges. The second one is also our official landing page. So with the official landing page, you can browse through every single Salesforce Labs app that's currently available on Appexchange, and you can find basically every single Labs app ever, including, you know, the apps, components, flows, every single solution that is currently available for you. And so for the purpose of today's presentation, I'm actually going to be sharing with you a couple of brief demos about some of my favorite labs solutions. And the first one is actually Lightning Mockup Components. So Lightning Mockup Components was released on Appexchange fairly recently. And what this solution does is it's a set of Lightning Web components. So you can like just drop them onto your Lightning pages without all like doing all the code and stuff. And with Lightning Mockup Components, you can create digital blueprints essentially of your own custom Salesforce page layouts. So with this Lightning Web component set, you can quickly draft and also iterate on new page layouts and components. It equips you with various tools to help you bring your own ideas to life. So we can go on ahead and we can jump right into the demo. Can you guys see my screen?
We still see the slide.
Okay, let me change that.
I'm getting the feeling we're like doing the pandemic Zoom functionality highlights, like everything that almost stereotypically happens during a virtual meeting has to happen. It may be easier to stop sharing and then reshare.
Okay. Okay, so you guys should be able to see my screen now, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so we have here a custom page layout that was designed entirely with Lightning Web Components. So So as you can see, it's generally a whiteboarded version. It is not a complete lightning page, but with this entire page was completely built with Lightning Mockup components, and it enables me to create custom page layout designs before rolling them out to my users. So as you can see, we have a custom header here, as well as some like little custom alerts, as well as some images that can help display they can help iterate like on like new ideas. So we also have like this little table that you can use to showcase that. And what's really neat about this component particularly is that you can edit it right inside of the page without having to navigate to the app builder. So let's say that we need to like, change this data. We can like, we can do that very easily right inside of this interface, and the changes are in fact applied without navigating to the Lightning Page Builder. There's also placeholders that you can use in order to help better lay out your ideas and designs. And what we can do is we can actually go inside and we can see on what kind of components exactly Lightning this package can bring to you. So we have 8 Lightning Web components included inside of this package. They're all very customizable. So the header actually you can customize with elements straight from the Lightning design system. So we can like obviously change that to whatever. And you can also lay out your entire page with custom images, as well as files that are already inside of your org. So that's how we're able to display the charts as well as this little image like of Appy here. There's also spacers you can add. And then like, there's also this little handy file helper that can help you upload files directly inside of your custom page, and then use those files inside of your layout. So this is Lightning Mockup components. Again, I highly encourage you to use it if you are looking to build custom blueprints for your new Lightning pages, and you can obtain real-time feedback and also provide users like a real-time experience of what the Lightning experience could bring to them. So we're going to go on ahead and we're going to go on to our second demo actually, which is, drum roll please, virtual drum roll, which is Lightning Mockup, not Lightning Mockup components, Time Warp. So with Time Warp, you can actually obtain a full timeline view of all of your related records. It's also highly interactive. So you can view key interactions with all of your customers over time. And like many components, it's also fully customizable. So this one was actually released like earlier this year, and we actually had like it's not just like one of like my favorites, but it also appears to be a customer favorite. So we can go on ahead and we can go and see this solution in action. So as you can see here, we have the Time Warp component drawn out on this particular Lightning page. So we are looking at all key interactions of one of our VIP customers, which happens to be Appy Camper. And well, as you can see, the standard Salesforce layout does in fact include a like a timeline view of all key interactions, but it can get kind of challenging to kind of keep up with all of that, with all of the amount of interactions that we've had with this particular customer. And that's where Time Warp can actually help. So as you can see up here, we can get a 360 view of all key interactions with this particular customer, Happy Camper. We can see that communications started at roughly around March 21st. But if we like expand this, we can see that that we've actually had like a few more inside of the beginning of the year. So you can collapse, you can expand that. You can also get instant access to all of these related records. So you know, it'll take you directly to it. You can also filter all of your records to see whatever is relevant to you. So here we can see everything, you know, it's like we can see the emails, the calls, the cases, but you know, what if I just want to find a particular case? With this filter, you can just uncheck all of them and find only cases. And now, boom, we only see all 3 cases the Appy Camper has logged, and we can get details on them simply by hovering over them. So it's also fully, it also features a full, like, it also features like some customizations for you. You can like customize elements such as like the title, the parent record. You can choose to like use this particular record page or not. You can also change the height, which I think is like really handy. So it's like set to the default now, but you know, if you want to like make it bigger, you can also do that as well. And then you can also set the future time range. So right now it sets up 0.5 years, but you know, just like leave it there. But you know, if you want to do 0.25, then like you would get like a more narrower view of like, you know, what you could do with it. And you can also choose on like where you want to zoom as well as the zoom range. So currently it sets like 60 days, but that's fully up to you. And you know, you can like figure out how like whatever is best for you and your organization. So once again, this is Time Warp. It's currently available on Salesforce Appexchange. If you do choose to try these 2 solutions, I do encourage you to leave a review. Salesforce Labs, we can learn more about how we can like better serve you if you were to do that. And so, you know, I would like, you know, highly encourage you to do that. And so we do have a couple of like, you know, other things to share with you. For one, we actually have an upcoming demo jam. So this demo jam will be held next Thursday, April 22nd, and it will be featured all on solutions exclusively for admins. So you can learn more information about that by checking out our Twitter handle. You can connect with us inside of a variety of ways. You can follow us on Twitter at Salesforce Labs. You can also explore our GitHub repo to find out which solutions are available for you to customize. Also at Salesforce Labs. And we also offer, we also release blogs like on a bi-weekly basis to help you understand more about our solutions, as well as, you know, discover some like, you know, labs recommended solutions that can best help you and your organization. So, you know, you can find all of those under the name of our senior manager, Sharon Clardy. And, you know, as Jen mentioned, you can also learn all about Appexchange simply by taking the Appexchange Basics Trail. So you can find that right on Trailhead, and you can, you know, start blazing your trail.
Awesome. I'm excited about the demo jam.
Yes, actually. So like, I'm actually going to be hosting that. So I'm like super excited. And just, yeah, you know, that will be promoted heavily like through Twitter, and it will actually be held like, you know, actually on the official Salesforce Labs playlist that you can find on the Appexchange YouTube channel. And then lastly, I just want to mention that we are doing a labs giveaway. So you can enter for a chance to win like some exclusive labs swag. I'll be dropping the link right inside of the chat, but basically you'll just have to tell us what your Salesforce Labs solution is and why. If you're not sure, you can just tell me which one of the two solutions demoed you liked better, and yeah, just we'll contact you if you win. So with that, I just want to thank you for having me. I really hope that you had enjoyed these two demos, and well, I do encourage you to connect with Salesforce Labs and just explore explore our solutions to find something that can best help you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yay.
One thing I do want to say about labs is they're a great learning opportunity because they post either them unmanaged or when they're managed, like if it involves Lightning components, they give you the GitHub. So there's been more than once where I thought, wow, that is really cool how they did this in labs, put it into a dev org and looked at how do they did it, or look at the GitHub to figure out how do they build their Lightning component, and may have liberated some concepts from what I saw in the Salesforce Labs to use in my other orgs when the app didn't quite fit what I wanted. So it's a great resource that everyone should at least be looking at.
Awesome. Well, thank you again very much to give us that overview. Next up is Cassie. She's going to talk to us about FormAssembly.
All right. Let me make sure I got the right screens here. So thank you, Marianna, for all that information. I love Salesforce Labs, and I already sent my team both of those because I'm really intrigued. So just a little background, I've been using FormAssembly for as long as I've been a Salesforce admin, which is almost 7 years. I do work in a nonprofit, so the example that I have as a demo today is a nonprofit example, but hopefully you can, if you're not a nonprofit, if you're in a different sector, you can kind of translate it to what it might mean for your org. So as we said, it is here on the Appexchange. It is a paid product, but it is reasonable enough that our nonprofit will pay for it. So hopefully that gives you an idea of the pricing there. And one of the features that we love the most that I'll highlight a little bit today is the pre-filled version, the pre-filled forms. And I've said this before, and I actually realized today they have this on their listing. They actually say they are web to anything. So if you've used web to lead or web to case, FormAssembly can help you get basically anything into your Salesforce instance. So our use case today that I'm going to talk through is actually getting information from our students. So we work with thousands of fellows across 6 different regions, and they don't have Salesforce licenses. And there's certain pieces of data like GPA or test scores that's easy for a teacher to enter on a student's behalf. But when we start talking about, FAFSA, which is, financial aid, or applications or contact information, it's not feasible for a teacher to be entering and managing all of that data. And so FormAssembly helps us get not only the information back to our fellows, but have them update and enter it as well. So the example we're looking at today, there's a few ways to accomplish this, but today we're looking at a data dashboard for a student. And so this actually launches from our single sign-on. We could also send a unique URL to the students that would pull up this. And you can see here that by loading this page, I'm actually pre-filling and pulling in data that is in Salesforce. In this case, we're passing the case safe ID directly from our single sign-on. But like I said, I could send an email from within Salesforce. I could find other ways to get that data, and I'll actually show you another example of pre-fill in just a second. So this is a way for our students to see what data do they have entered, what data do they maybe need to update, and kind of what's on their task list for right now. And what this does is this form itself doesn't actually collect any data, but we can combine the data into the pieces that, the academic info, application summary, and then actually launch out to other forms and pre-fill those forms as well. So you can see here that I maybe need to update my contact information because I haven't done it since December. And so I can come here and it's going to pre-fill all of my data already. And so I don't need to re-enter all of this information again. I just need to update anything that maybe isn't current, or if it is all current, then I can just submit it. And then when I pop back here, this date will update because again, it'll pre-fill. You can see that in this section, we've got information about applications. And so again, I can click that link and it's going to pop out to another form that's going to pre-fill. and it's going to show me some of my data. I can update my email if I want. I can see my most recent academic information, and I can actually come in and start to update my applications. Another cool feature is all of the customizations we can do around conditional visibility. So let's say I actually just want to worry about all of the things I've submitted. I need to update whether or not they've been accepted or declined. I can use some of these features up here to control my view. And I can also add new institutions down here. And so again, you can see some of these sections have different amounts of applications. There's a feature called repeatable sections. And so the form is actually just saying, okay, go find as many records as you can that meet these criteria, and then create as many sections of data as you find of records in Salesforce. And I'll show you the back end of that in a minute as well. Now, let's say that maybe we have a student who can't remember where to go into a single sign-on, or their teacher is just saying, hey, you know what, you just need to go update your application. Don't worry about anything else right now. We can also have them pre-fill through in this case, we're using a workflow. So we're asking our students to enter their email, and we're using this email to go find their data in Salesforce so we can get to that same application, or sorry, that same form pre-filled with their data. So we have multiple routes where they can get to the same data. I've seen other organizations actually create like a pseudo password and login and storing that on records in Salesforce. You can use this with like a unique ID. Obviously, you have to keep security in mind, which is why pieces for us like applications, they can use their email. Anything that contains financial information or contact information, we have to use that case-safe ID and pass them through some other security there. So let me pop back and go to our demo dashboard. You're gonna see there's lots of sections on here. Now this is actually, we're looking at this form as if it's today, but let's imagine that we're actually going back in time, and we're gonna pretend that it's November. And we're gonna go back and we're gonna see that this form is actually gonna show, or actually not show certain information. And so there was a section down here for post-secondary information, but back in November, that didn't matter. And so on the form builder, we can control what data is showing and what's not. We can also do that. I mentioned that we work in 6 different regions. And so we do not have 6 forms or we do not have 6 versions of every form for every region. So let's now pretend that this is a fellow or a student that's in New York. And so they're coming here, and now they have a section here that is actually looking at updating their CUNY information. And so we actually need their FERPA is their data release. And so now, because they have identified that they are a New York student, we can come in here and we can they can see this data where no other student is going to see that link. There's lots of other, we talked about conditional, whether or not you say yes or no here. We have different messages showing up. Another conditional feature, let me pop back here for a second. Let's pretend the student was actually in Houston. Then they have additional questions pop up for each application because Houston has different criteria for application submission. So that's what it looks like for the end user. If we jump into, a few more minutes here, we've got the form builder and the form connector on the admin side. So how do we make all that magic happen with all of these fields conditionally appearing and not? We've got lots and lots of hidden fields. And so we can, this is where, it's pulling data from Salesforce and it's pulling their region. It's actually reading today's date and pulling the current month to control whether or not certain sections should show up. If we go back to this, sorry, let me go back here. Nope. This one here, we can display different messages depending on whether or not they've submitted their FERPA. And so that's where you see these different messages. So we can write that here, and then we can reference them later in the form, depending on the values that are coming in from Salesforce. And so we have all of that built on the form, and then we're using those fields to conditionally display. We also have the fail-safe in case a student tries to access this, not through SSO or their ID is wrong. We then just say, we couldn't find your information, but you can still access all of these forms that are not pre-filled, and everything will still submit. They just won't see the data from Salesforce. On the connector side of it, as I've started to learn more about Flow, this is just like Flow. You're getting records, you're telling FormAssembly how to go find the information. In this case, we're saying case-safe ID. You're looking up certain objects. You're saying what fields you want to pull in. This is where we're controlling that month and saying what month it should pull in based on today's date. And we're pulling in a ton of information here from, I think, at least five different objects. We have a lot about custom objects. and then again, pulling that all onto the form. And so really without this, there's no way that we'd be able to get our students to update their information. There was a world in which they used to have to just re-enter it every single time. This is a standalone product, so I can just share out a link and a student can go access it. They don't have to be in community. They don't need any sort of login. You can embed them in community, so we've done that for our teachers. We also use this for things internally. Sometimes people just like a form better. And so we create even if you could do the same thing in a flow internally, we create a form. We use this for our admin team as well. We have a whole set of forms that sets up when a teacher changes. So it happens a lot, and someone from a regional team can go to the form and say, this teacher is leaving, this teacher's coming on, and it'll go update the 5 related records, deactivate a user account, recreate or reactivate a user account, and ultimately give all the right permissions. It's magic. It saves us a ton of time. It saves everybody else a ton of time. So again, got 7 years of experience using this. And if you can't tell already, I love the product. And definitely happy to talk with anyone else if you've got questions, but I think that's as much as I've got.
Rapid fire. That was a lot. I didn't know that FormAssembly was so powerful. And I love that you can just give them links and not actually have to put it on a website or community, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, like I said, that data dashboard actually this year helped us control that even more. So you don't have to share out links. You just say, go to your data dashboard, and then we can control what shows up there. So even if links change or anything like that, it's been super helpful. There's some challenges with the things on the IT side, but the forms still are working great.
We might have to have you come back and talk more about it, because that
Me
was,
too.
I know that it does so much, and that was super quick, and I'm excited to hear more.
Everyone can go to the recording and put me on like half speed. So.
Any questions for Cassie? Okay, so we will move to Edessa.
There's one question.
Oh, there is a question. Any way to make multi-user forms in real time? What do you mean by that, John?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at one of the challenges in our nonprofit is we have groups of students and faculty on campus who want to form an agreement in order to affiliate with the national movement. And right now the solution is pretty much a Google Doc, because they can all, type in their names and email addresses, kind of an informal digital signature to say, yep, I'm in. Is that the kind of thing that you can envision doing? Because what's particularly appealing is skipping communities. We may get to communities for that kind of application, but we're not there yet.
So what I'm thinking is like, maybe if you had a standard form that just says like, let us know that you're interested in affiliating, then yeah, you could have a form that is like, campus name. And you could even, with that like repeatable section, if you needed to collect the individual names of whoever's part of that group, you could say, you could set up to say how many people are part of it, or, just keep hitting add another section, because that's something else you could do too, is add more sections. And then like, I don't know if you're asking for like the reason or rationale, and you can submit to Salesforce. You can also submit to Google Sheets. There's lots of other connectors on there as well. There's also features for like emailing notifications and completion of the forms back to whoever submitted it. So there's a ton of features that we haven't touched on, and FormAssembly is continuing to enhance those things. So I'm not sure if seems like the right use case, but that's what my brain went to.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we are going to pass it to Edessa, and I think, we are running close to the end of our session. So we might bring this to our next community group for us to talk about anything that we didn't get to today. But I do want to have Edessa go ahead and share the app that she uses in her org and why she loves it.
Yeah. Oops, I just turned my face off. No, yeah. And I mean, the app that I'm sharing is super, super quick. I don't know how I'm going to follow. Is it Cassie or Cassie's presentation, but we'll figure it out. Okay, so I'm in the marketing department. So we don't have Pardot or Marketing Cloud. and I needed to find a way to just dump a bunch of leads on contacts into one group per marketing event. So for example, we attend a conference or we do a webinar and we get all this registration information. We need to put it somewhere in Salesforce so that the sales team can do their bit. And so that's where we use campaigns. So campaigns on its own is not really impressive. It's just whatever, I guess. But so by default, you only get 2 campaign member statuses. It's sent or responded, which doesn't make sense for our use case. And, I need more statuses than just these 2. And so I had to find a way to kind of like change the status, change the default, add new statuses for the campaign members. And that's where I got this AA consult campaign status. This was free when I installed it 2 years ago, and now it's paid. But so really what it does is, so this is the default. I can add a new status and say contacted. And when this status, never mind. So yeah, it's contacted. And then it changes. And so I can change the default from sent to contacted. And yeah, it just helps my brain organize how we handle our contacts and our leads. So I'm in the sandbox. I'll give you a snippet of what it looks like in production. So we have all of these, we've contacted the lead or the contact. We're not contacting them. It's still open. They responded, they're interested, and they responded, they're not interested. So from a marketing standpoint, these are data that I need to do my side of things. And this app has really helped me at least, get campaigns in Salesforce to help me with what I need to do. And that's it. Short and sweet.
That's great. Any questions for Tessa? One thing, and you can go ahead and stop sharing as well. One thing that I just want to say is, like, we saw Salesforce Labs, we saw FormAssembly, which is very meaty and can do a lot. But then there's also these little quick things like this campaign app that makes Edessa's life a little bit easier when she's creating and adjusting things for her campaign. So there's so much that the Appexchange has to offer for us to kind of make our lives a little bit easier as admins. So I know that we're at time. So Brian, does it make sense that we, do we want to continue? I know I can ask the group too. Do we want to continue and see the grid? I forgot what it's called already. Gridmate. I want to do it with like an Australian accent. Or shall we pause that and share it maybe in our next user group?
We can do either.
Anyone have any preferences? Put it in the chat, shout out. You want to continue hanging out with us or you want to go?
I don't want to go, but I kind of have to
go
because reasons that Brian knows.
Yeah, unable to stay, it looks like. So I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna just go ahead and end the session today. Thank you so much for everyone for joining and for sharing your apps and sharing all of your knowledge. Mary, thank you so much. And then we'll just tack on the 2 apps that Brian and I wanted to share at our next user group Square. If we can make that happen, that's a great idea.
Awesome.
Yeah. So really quick before we hang up, do you guys like doing the Appexchange kind of review? Is this something should we do more frequently? Okay. So I'm going to ask everyone to do this. You saw, what Cassie and Edessa did, the demo really short, a handful of minutes. I think it would be amazing if we can make this something on a regular basis where we highlight like maybe a app from someone in the user group using, and it doesn't have to be a very big convoluted demo with lots of explanations. It could just be a really quick show it off and tell us why you like it. So I would like everyone to take away and think about what things have you used or using on the Appexchange that you would like to share with the group, and let Jen and I know about it. And we can work with you to find time, because if we can do even just one every meeting, I think that would be amazing.
Awesome.
I mean, and just to build on that, Brian, because I love this idea and I can't wait to hear more. I think there's also value in talking about apps that we pulled that we were maybe disappointed with or got a bad feedback. I mean, I don't mean it in the wrong way, but like sometimes you learn more from having to uninstall it than from what you got from it. So let's make sure it's both sides of the coin.
I'm trying to stay positive, Squire.
I'm being positive too. Like, I mean,
I positively needed that uninstalled.
All right, cool.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.